responsibility creep, as far as my industry experience goes back, it was like 20 years. It was earth shattering when HMOs were rolled out in the market. It sent a panic through agencies as to how they were going to educate around it. Eventually, HRAs and HSAs and FSAs and all these things creep their way into the picture. You get varying degrees and times for compliance regulations that you as an agent, it's laid at your doorstep. This is your responsibility to be the comprehensive consultant to my agency, because that's the promise that you made. Tell me it's not. Please send me a note anywhere, here on LinkedIn, anywhere else, if you do not go sit down with the client and tell them you're going to be their comprehensive consultant, you're going to be more comprehensive than the last guy. I've yet to meet an agent who does not say that, who says we do this one thing really well and we don't do the rest. You can still pay us though, and we'll consolidate it. That is being transparent to that end. But it's not to say that this responsibility creep isn't real. Technology has been laid at your feet. You now need to be technology experts, payroll experts, EDI feed experts. The amount of things that you're asked to be an expert on from year to year grows. It grows every year, and that's responsibility creep. What's happened to agency revenues over that period of time? They've been compressed. They have, there's more competition in the marketplace. And so while the revenue compression is going down, responsibility is going up. And so an organization's ability to scale their team in two ways. One, just sheer headcount to keep up with responsibility creep has not kept pace. And two, with specialists that can maintain the expertise for that area. Even the largest companies in our industry out there are struggling to this end.
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rockin', where I only, as you already know, if you've ever listened to the show, I only have the most fantastic rock stars that are always rocking, doing well in life, doing well in business, crushing all of their business and life goals. And this week, my friends, is no exception. Everybody, please help me welcome my good friend and colleague in the benefits industry, Mr. The One, the Only, Kevin Curran, founding partner at Salt Margin. What's up, Kevin?
Hey, Eric, buddy. Thanks for the incredible introduction. Happy to be here today and be talking with you again. Throws me back to the days when we were running a podcast together. So love talking, and I've really loved what you've done with this Rockstars Rockin' podcast, man. You've had some just amazing guests so far. I feel honored to be invited back and excited to do this with you here today.
Oh man, the feeling's mutual. And my current, or I guess former guests, they're great, but they're nothing on you, man. Just wait. Anybody listening, just wait till you hear this. And Kevin's probably thinking, I bet you say that to all the girls. Yes, I do. I really do.
That's true.
I do. So Kevin,
all the girls
buddy,
don't have a beard this nice.
That's true. They don't have a beard that nice. Very nice beard. So if you're listening, you need to check it out on YouTube. Shameless plug. Thank you for that, Kevin. Check it out on YouTube, subscribe, and turn those notifications on. All right. So Kevin, let's get into it, man. Last time I video chatted with you, I guess, was when we were doing, we did about 6 months of a show called Former Carrier Reps. And that was a lot of fun for both you and I. But that was always designed to be short term. And since then, man, your business has not only exploded, but you've had a lot of changes within. So if you don't mind, I want to dive right in and ask you a crap ton of questions and share everything with our audience.
Shoot.
So Kevin, you, like myself, I just said we did former carrier reps for a while. You, like myself, were a carrier rep, I was a carrier rep manager, whatever you wanted to call me, for the better part of 15 years. In your case, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but you too, you were a carrier rep. The question I have is, what really made you, for the most part, decide, hey, you know what, I want to do this thing on my own. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to found something. I want to start something from scratch. and give it the old college try. What was one of those reasons for the most part? And are you glad you did it?
Lots of reasons, and very glad I did it. In short, the longer version is I really failed in my first 3.5 years as a carrier rep, and I had 7 years, so it's kind of the tale of two halves. I worked for a company that had a great brand, but I did not have a personal brand and did not know how to make myself known within a brokerage office, and I didn't know how to properly leverage the strengths of the carrier that I was working for. Plenty of folks are out there doing it, no excuses, but I was very much on an action plan being managed out of the business when I kind of had my eureka moment. I sat down with, it was about a 40-person courier company, and I came in with the most vanilla generic plans, discounted the maximum amount that I could have discounted the plans. Sat down with the owner. He's like, hey, I'm 68 years old. This life and disability program is cheaper than my individual policy. Should I still have my individual policy? Go grab it and bring it in. Partner number 2 says, hey, I have a heart condition, mild. It actually just flared up a few years back and not had any issues since. I can't get covered for business continuity planning, for individual disability planning. This little bit of insurance is all that I really have. We went around the 4 owners. By the time we were done, we addressed all of their issues. We weren't writing some vanilla plan. We were addressing every one of their issues individually through group and guarantee issue coverage. By the time that we ended up, the premium was more than 5 times that I had come in requesting. I was at my carrier's long-term rate for the risk that was being put out there, not at a 40% discount to the long-term rate, which probably would have elicited a 40 to 50% rate increase at the first pass. And properly addressing it, they're shaking my hand walking out of the room, and I just 5x their premium. I'm like, what the hell just happened here? Like, this is unlike anything that I've done before. And I stopped and I recognized what was going on in the industry as a whole. Medical meetings that were scheduled for 90 minutes had gone 2 hours and 15 minutes each year for the last dozen years. And as the person's walking out of the room because the meeting overstayed its welcome, they say, oh, by the way, on your life and disability insurance, you're getting an 8% increase. We can save you 15% versus current on semi-apples to apples plans. Do you want to take it? Do you not want to take it? And so status quo, it just kind of persisted. New limitations had found their way sneaking into these contracts, and nobody has properly paused to reset. Are these really the correct programs for your organization? So I set out to start an organization that was going to hit that pause, take that beat, to really look at, are the demographics and the plans working together? Has the employer been empowered to understand the decisions that they make? So we walk them through, here's your policy, here's the implications, here's how the program works come claim time, and here are your alternatives to those outcomes. And what I find interesting is, well north of two-thirds of the time, people are purchasing the richer programs. And what's also interesting is our closing ratio on new business is north of 70%. People are not hearing this stuff from their brokers in the marketplace. And you talk about the success compounding. We've had a little bit more time, worked over the last year to really clarify our story and our brand as an organization. And all those things have had compounding effects, over the last 18 months, 12 months for us. So it's been coming up on 9 years since I launched the organization.
That's awesome. That's a great story. And, it's like a turning moment for you, or it was the turning moment. And, I'm not going to share my story and waste time. This is about you today, my friend. But, I have a similar story, different, but similar. There's always a turning moment. Not everybody, but I would say the lion's share of the people I interview for this podcast, Rockstars Rocking, or just people I meet, everybody's got a story that kind of turned them a little bit into more of a refined approach or a different part of their life to either switch industries, some people, or continue, but like I said, refine it. So that's a good story.
Appreciate it.
Let me ask you. So when I met you, you were the founding partner, and you have a ton of good people on your team. I know you have a partner as well, but the name of the company was EBSME. EBSME, Employee Benefit Subject Matter Experts. That's a mouthful. Now, once I understood it, once you told it to people, it was easy to say, easy to understand, easy to remember. But I like Salt Margin better. I think that's a fantastic name, particularly knowing some of the things that you talk about and what you say and your taglines and so forth. Can you just walk us through? I think it might be a little obvious, but why you switched from EB SME to in this case Salt Margin, but more so how you even came about the name Salt Margin.
For this, I have to give a shout out to Wendy Kneep and Kevin Trokey at Q4 Intelligence.
I love those guys.
They were the
former,
first ones.
not so good podcast guests, according to you, but that's okay.
I said the best podcast guest.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Kevin.
But taking the time to say, you know, for everything you all are doing with challenging the industry, your brand is not keeping par with it. It's, you know, alphabet soup. It is that the industry suffers from, you know, about the only thing that maybe we missed out on is last name and associates as far as a brand name goes. But that probably would have been better than EBSME, because 7.5 years in, I had clients that I've been working with darn near every day during that period of time that we were EB SME, we were EBSME, we were Employee Benefit Subject Matter Experts LLC, we were EBSME, we were all the things except for the thing that we were. And that really is, you don't recognize it, but it's a brand killer. And outside of the uber obvious, there's no follow-up to Employee Benefit Subject Matter Experts. There's no lean in of, well, what does that mean? Right. And I can tell you that having a little bit of mystery around it has been super valuable. And again, I give those two credit for, like, don't hit the nail so hard on the head. Find something that is an inference to it that has people leaning in, asking, what does that mean? And very insightful on their part to help us with that initial moment there.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wendy's a branding genius. No disrespect to Kevin, I love them both, but but she's incredible. I've seen what she does for all of her member folks and frienders, as they call them, and obviously I've seen what she's done for you. So
I was sitting in a basement when I first started the business. It was no windows. It was probably somewhere, you know, around 12 by 12 feet. My wife's off-season IKEA armoire was next to me. Next to that was the kids' stack of board games, floor to ceiling. And I was sitting down there, and I really just wanted to validate who I am. So I wanted to come up with something big and strong. It seems like it has more people to it, and that's how you
were in a prison cell.
That's right. That's right. So when you start, you kind of start from this place of, like, you know, the Jeff Bezos picture that you often see online, right, of him sitting in his office, computer cores everywhere, Amazon.com spray painted up on a banner on the wall. You know, by no means comparing myself to him, but I would say I did have as many computer cords. And that was probably
I still own them. They're in a bag in the closet like any guy.
That's right. So, you know, I see why I made the decision to do EB SME at the time, but it didn't really create a brand. And so as you bring on teammates, brought on a business partner, added confidence, brought on teammates, you start to be a little bit more conditioned and able to hear the fact that your baby's ugly. And so, you know, if you think, like, that's the ugliest baby I've ever seen, Jerry Seinfeld
episode. Yep.
Yeah. And you know, hearing it for the first time, it does suck a little bit, but I was in a position at that point to kind of hear it, you know, and we sort of moved on from there. We started working really on what was the mission of ourselves and our organization. And so the challenge that we came across was, are we trying to be good? Like, do we want to be good for our marketplace when it comes to life and disability? Or do we think that we're on the path on how to properly host a diagnostic consultation that, you know, for anybody on here that transacts health insurance, if you have a 150 life prospect that is fully insured, I bet you have a diagnostic playbook and consultative playbook that you can walk somebody through, fully insured, partially self-funded, fully self-funded, prescription drug solutions, all sorts of things that you're going to bring to the table. You can kill your consultation at the end of that meeting. You're going to be like, and by the way, we shopped your life and disability plans, and we can save you 8%. And you did all this consulting, and you get to the spot, and you do everything that you say that you're not. You fall off your brand. And your consultative promise that you have to these clients, that you are going to challenge them, that you're going to consult them. I yet to meet brokers that are consistently doing this on a case-over-case basis when it comes to group life and disability. So
It doesn't exist, man. Trust me. We both know
it does exist. It's called salt margin.
Well, I mean, the brokers themselves, very few, if any, are doing it.
Right, 100%. And some of them can do it on a one-off scenario, but even that I would say is a little short of what they could be doing.
Right.
And so it was scary. It was really intimidating taking on our mission statement. Our mission statement now is designing the new standard. Because implicit within that is the idea that this small team that we are scaling, we're 5 people now. We've got 3 positions open. We'll be 8 in the next couple of months. And we hope to be doubled in size actually by next year. And we seem actually to be kind of on that pace to be doing those sorts of things. But that we're going to change the industry. We are going to make it not okay to transact business in the way people are transacting business as a commodity. We want to become a danger. We want it to be a liability to not be doing it the correct way. So, it's not to say that we don't understand how busy people are and that there are other priorities. It is to say that none of that matters. You took the commission, you still owe the consultation. So you either do it internally, you find somebody to do it externally, or you decide that you're going to leave it open as a liability. The interesting thing for us is that we get an outsized bullhorn in the fact that all of they learn to tell this story. They're the ones out there telling it. I don't have to go out there and individually say it. We don't sell direct to businesses. We only work through the broker channel. And so our people are out there telling the story. And the question is, are they in the market? Are they going to find your client next? I can tell you that with that closing ratio well over 70%, if we get in there, you should be worried because we're probably going to find things that are going to be seen as a liability. We're going to find savings that you haven't necessarily presented. And if we can tell a comprehensive story across that agency's brand, plus what we're doing here, it's a good chance we're going to take that piece of business. So again, not a threat, not meant to be on some hubristic high point, but you took the commission, you owe the consultation.
So and I might have asked you this in years past, just casually chatting, but to be honest, I really don't remember. Are you guys at Salt Margin set up more as a disability and life and or IDI type bro? Are you guys set up as a GA, or are you just doing straight rev shares with health brokers that bring you in? Or you don't have to go into exact specifics, but how are you guys doing that?
Got a worksheet right here. I'll hold it. No, just kidding. Up the camera. So we are doing. We really don't like, and I can't say we are GA compensation lists, but we do not want to be a GA. Mm-hmm. We work on a revenue share at this point. We do have legacy GA overrides in place. We feel as if there's some commission gouging. We feel that there is a lack of consultation. There's like a general notion of like, hey, we do it better because, we have a background in it, but it's not a consultative focus that people have. And so there's a kind of a couple of GA values in the marketplace. Like one is we can lift the administrative burden, maybe give you a consolidated bill. Another one is, hey, we got a piece of free tech. Another one is, hey, we can be your back end. We can do the implementation and answer customer service questions. Our particular value is that we are going to bring consulting to this space. We are going to deeply and proactively consult it, bringing in analytics, diagnostics, and we're going to treat this the same way that you would treat that advanced self-funded client when you're talking about what you're doing on the medical fronts. And so we're going to align for you what you're doing other places to an area that we find very important, because a long-term disability claim, you take the average US employee, 42 years old, their future projected earnings until Social Security normal retirement age is almost $2 million. And so this is, for that average employee that makes $53,000 a year, do they have a bigger asset than their future projected earnings? Their house, their car, their Cal savings, their 401k is nowhere near the value of their future projected earnings. And so we actually feel that group insurance is the place to address it for the majority of Americans. It's not to say we don't do some individual disability insurance, but fixing group insurance where it stands is really our passion. And so we work hand in glove with fine folks like yourself that do voluntary and enhanced benefits, and believe in the importance of a specialist on your side really driving those conversations, where we drive it on group life and disability insurance. There's a way that you and I work in like a hand in glove style of, can assist in the front end of quotes, you negotiate it, you present it, you do the education and assist with what's the best path for an enrollment solution for that client. We're not prepared to do all those things in the worksite area. We are very prepared to be the leader and thought leader in group life and disability. We also do a lot of dental and vision, and I would say we do that much better than most, but we do not do anything unique in dental and vision. We do it very well. We are unique when it comes to group life and disability insurance, is our feeling.
All right. So it's interesting. I was going to ask you if you did anything other than life and DI. So you just read my mind, of course, because we're kindred spirits here. But dental and vision, I didn't know that you did dental and vision, but I respect and appreciate what you just said. And I'm not a dental and vision quote unquote firm per se, any more than you would badge yourself as it. But stuff falls in our laps, and we can do it. We do it well. But I agree with what you just said. It's more of a, at least from a dental and vision perspective, maybe you tell me if this is too strong of a word. I would say it's a little bit more commoditized. So we can do it. We're glad to take it off your plate, Mr. Miss Broker, Mr. Advisor that needs our help and wants our help. But it's not anything you aren't already doing.
It's lower stakes. I mean, what's the value to an employee of a dental program? Shove the premiums into a cookie jar over a 20-year period. There will be more cash in the cookie jar than you paid out going, just walking through the door to dental practices.
Well, dude, I talk to businesses and HR people all the time, and brokers who, they live and die by dental and vision. Oh my God, we got to have dental and vision. And it's really the perception, right? Employees just are pre-exposed to dental and vision and health insurance being the end all be all when they get a job, when they come out of high school or college or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
And I'm not arguing that's the society we live in. I think you'd agree, but the reality is, particularly if there's any employee funded component, and even employer funded, before anybody spends money on dental and vision, they better damn sure, in my opinion, have a really solid DI and life plan structured. I mean, my God, I don't see people. I guess it could happen. Don't write me hate mail here if there's a story you have out there, but I don't often see somebody becoming disabled because they have a cavity or you get the idea. Like nobody. I guess it could happen again. I don't know. Trying to play nice here, but nobody's losing their home because they had to continue wearing the same frames from last year.
Correct. I mean, it's low dollars. What we look at everything from two value perceptions. One is premium outlay. You got to manage that for an employer. How much are they spending? How can you control it? And we do dental and vision on probably about 75-80% of the cases that we work. So we do a few hundred dental vision opportunities a year. We are pretty adept at it. But that low dollar outlay, but it's dental and vision. Vision ranks ahead of long-term disability insurance. 150 from an employee's rating perspective. If you look at like the MetLife annual studies, they show you the priority matrix of employees for certain benefits, and vision always is ahead of long-term disability insurance. And it's this idea that we insure incidence as a society and not severity. Because we can imagine incidents happening to us. We can imagine our cell phone screen cracking because our kid drops it on the floor. We can imagine our glasses breaking, or the fact that, there is natural wear and tear. We need to replace them. It's more difficult to say I'm going to have a slow onset degenerative disease that's going to prevent me from working for the next 25 years and is going to cost me millions of dollars. One, people don't want to think about it. And two, it is lower incidence. But if we think back to the advent of insurance, like there was fire insurance and life insurance, and that's it. And it's basically catastrophic events that nobody at that point in time could possibly self-fund outside of like your local land baron. The problem is I could take out a life insurance policy on Eric and kill him and collect the cash if I wanted to back then, because you didn't need to have any insurable interest in people. So they did clean up that end of the pool. Eric, I'm not coming for you, I promise, buddy. But I mean, it does sort of reset to us, like, not only do we need to challenge people on policy provisions and the implications of them, we need to challenge them on the idea of how they prioritize these benefits. And life and disability insurance, we always tell people that they are stewardship benefits. These are not attract employees, retain employees style benefits. The only way that they are is if like all of them are voluntary and you're in an industry where everybody pays for them. Just actually had a call this morning with a government contractor. The particular SIC, 85% of LTD plans are employer funded, and STD plans, and 82% of LTD plans are employer funded, and all their programs are voluntary. And it's like, look, you're missing the mark. And their HR director's like, we actually had an exit interview yesterday where an employee said that's an issue. So the overall package of benefits and how it's structured can lean people one way or another. But once you check the box, if you have it, it doesn't really further people. They don't understand the provisions to know anything deeper. And so for you to do anything else besides having it is really an effort of stewardship on your behalf to take care of these people should a catastrophic event happen. And sometimes, it's as simple as, hey, you're funding vision at 100% for employees and dependents. It's costing you $23,000 a year. Like, we could fix every problem that you have on your STD and LTD programs if vision goes voluntary. Let me tell you what, half of your employees don't wear these things. They can go get an exam on their own. It's not a big deal. It's not going to impact them in any way. So, it's taking the time to step backwards. We take their census, we merge it against their programs, we look for gap analysis, we look for things where there's not symmetry of thought across the benefits. If you've got voluntary STD and LTD, but you pay 100% of dental and vision, that is not symmetry. That's not smart. I wouldn't advocate it. And let me give you an education as to how severe that disability scenario could play out for an employee. And can we allocate some of those dollars over here? There's other ways to save dollars other than these ways, but that's a pretty darn simple way that we see all the time. That's like, nobody stepped back and looked at this with a critical eye in forever. And my favorite version of that, first launched the business 6 months in, I met with the 80 Life architecture firm, and we did a full tear down, rebuild, life, STD, LTD, dental, vision, and worksite benefits from where it was to a much higher place. Cost them a little bit more money in the process, but we were doubling plan maximums, making benefits tax-free, doing some dual option stuff on the dental that really improved benefits. And when we got done, the CEO turned to the CFO and said, how long has it been since we've looked at these benefits like this? And the CFO deadpan back, well, I've been here 19 years. It's been at least 19 years.
Right.
And that's the status quo for the industry. Like, another great question for you to ask an employer is, outside of a rate increase or a customer service issue that you've gone to your broker on, how many years would you have to look back to find 5 minutes of proactive education and consultation when it comes to your group life and disability programs? Have you gotten in the last 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, ever? In most instances, it's going to be never. And so if I'm prospecting, I find a couple of gaps and ask that question, and it has not been, it's been 8, 10 years. How confident do you feel about retaining that client when pricing today is much better than pricing was 8, 10 years ago on group life and disability insurance? I'm not sure how it's gone down so much, but I'm working a case right now with a Colin Shea, and I asked him if I could share his name, so I will, because it's his group, and he did the good job of going out there and finding this opportunity. Works for an agency called Gills Bar in Louisiana. Found a prospect. They're spending $125,000 on their life and disability plan. It's the most egregious thing I've ever seen in my life for what they're paying for the size of the group that they are. The premium for their in-force plan should be about $30,000. This program has been in force since 1999. If they've been overpaying for that long, that means they've spent over $2 million on life and disability alone of overpayments. If that's your client, how do you think that CFO reacts to that news? You're gone. I'm spending $100K a year on life and disability alone. Not only am I giving you the life and disability, I'm giving you the BOR on the 401K if the guy has it. I'm giving you the BOR on the medical, the dental, the vision. You have displayed gross negligence at that point. What I can say is there's not gross negligence everywhere, but there is at least negligence most places when it comes to these benefits.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to ask an employer, hey, when you started the business 3, 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, did you know anything about insurance or employee benefits? You had 2 people when you started, and they always say no. And I say, well, where'd you get the advice to fully fund dental, vision, and health insurance and make voluntary disability or life or whatever it is, like to your point? And the overall majority say, I don't know, we had a broker. And I'm like, oh, okay, great, of course. So was their suggestion? Yeah, absolutely. They said that it was based on the market and the time and the industry and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So you've had how many brokers since the last 18 years? And keep in mind, I'm with the broker that walked me in because I'm similar to you. I just don't do those exact products. Sure. And they'll say, I don't know, 3, 4, 5. And I'm like, okay, so every however many years you switch brokers, no offense to you, Mr. Broker, who's on the call, and they always laugh. And I say, every broker that comes in, do they just pick up the ball and continue that dreadful path? Or has anybody
recycle the old crap?
Right. Have they ever made any new ideas or suggestions? Do they just, tell you they're going to go shop the market and, bring you back a less bad rate increase than the year before, hopefully? And they always laugh and they smirk and they're like, yeah, no, nobody's really ever looked at it. And if they do, it's what you just said. So look, I fully support what you say. It is a very status quo part of our business. So, the average health advisor and broker that we know is out there advocating and preaching to the high heavens and yelling from mountaintops about how, fully insured is crazy and it should be all self-funded and this, and this. But meanwhile, they're missing out on doing the right thing in your lane and for sure in my lane too, which is a little bit different. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You talk about on your LinkedIn profile a number of great things. Anybody who's not connected with Kevin yet on LinkedIn, please change that immediately. I don't know what on earth you could be possibly waiting for. But on your about section, you talk about salt margin and how you believe a grain of salt can tip the scale. So, and I understand, I agree, because it's this consultative approach and all the things you're bringing to the table that is and will be that grain of salt that tips the scale to help not just you win a case, but to help the broker win and keep the case and retain them and not have that gross negligence. But one thing you talk about specifically, number 3 of 4 items listed, but I like what you talk about number 3. Can you expound upon what you call quote unquote responsibility creep? What does that mean in your opinion? And how is that referencing what you do and or what a broker or an advisor is doing?
100%. Up till this point, I just want to say there's not been as much empathy as I actually feel towards benefits advisors. It's not that I understand the passion that benefits advisors carry for this business. I understand that the 800-pound gorilla that the entire world is trying to wrestle to the ground is healthcare cost inflation and underperforming healthcare systems. And I just want to say how I understand the nobility of that. I understand the dollar cost behind it. And I really understand, sitting in enough of these meetings, I even understand the complexity behind it. Your job is not easy, and it's not been made any easier by this term responsibility creep. So responsibility creep, as far as my industry experience goes back, it's like 20 years. It was earth shattering when HMOs were rolled out in the market. It sent a panic through agencies as to how they were going to educate around it. Eventually, HRAs and HSAs and FSAs and all these things creep their way into the picture. You get varying degrees and times for compliance regulations that you as an agent, it's laid at your doorstep. This is your responsibility to be the comprehensive consultant to my agency, because that's the promise that you made. Tell me it's not. Please send me a note anywhere, here on LinkedIn, anywhere else, if you do not go sit down with a client and tell them you're going to be their comprehensive consultant, you're going to be more comprehensive than the last guy. I've yet to meet an agent who does not say that, who says we do this one thing really well and we don't do the rest. You can still pay us though, and we'll consolidate it as being transparent to that end. But it's not to say that this responsibility creep isn't real. Technology has been laid at your feet. You now need to be technology experts, payroll experts, EDI feed experts. The amount of things that you're asked to be an expert on from year to year grows. It grows every year, and that's responsibility creep. What's happened to agency revenues over that period of time? They've been compressed. They have, there's more competition in the marketplace. And so while the revenue compression is going down, responsibility is going up. And so an organization's ability to scale their team in two ways. One, just sheer headcount to keep up with responsibility creep has not kept pace. And two, with specialists that can maintain the expertise for that area. Even the largest companies in our industry out there are struggling to this end. So, you think of any of the national consulting houses, responsibility creep is as real for them as it is for the decentralized agency that is a one-person practice, maybe an account manager, who partners with Kevin and Eric and other people who are exemplary in their areas and decide that, hey, I'm going to sell, I'm going to be the medical expert, I'm going to decentralize my agency, and I'm going to work with other experts. The responsibility creep actually is probably better assumed by those individuals than it is by the national consulting houses. And I think that's the reason why somebody like Salt Margin and Voluntary Disruption have had the opportunity to take off, is because it is so hard to scale the required team to be the comprehensive consultant that you promise that you're going to be at the outset when you first take on a client.
Yeah, I mean, responsibility creep. I love how you talk about, agencies are expected to do more, and yet for the same money or even less. So it's a perfect definition of responsibility creep. I think it's even akin to, agencies feel pressure, particularly small, mid-sized, regional-based agencies feel pressure to compete with the big boys, to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, right?
Right.
I mean, you look at, and it's going to sound crazy, but I don't know. My brain thinks of, McDonald's was not founded on salads and coffee, but yet
Sure.
you can get a coffee and a salad at McDonald's. They're not, I don't think anybody would define their salad and coffee as the end all be all of salad and coffee, but they need to be competitive and they don't want to turn away a customer. They want to have other avenues to bring in business and not lose customers. So I think a lot of agencies feel that same pressure. They didn't start the benefits business to be an EDI feed expert and to be an enrollment counselor expert and to be a life and disability and dental and vision, let alone, let's not forget pet insurance and student loans and ID theft. Like, they're not experts in that. They readily admit it, but there's so much pressure upon them to know everything. So that's what kind of, to me, that's where you and I have that market. To coin your, patent pending old company name, we are the employee benefit subject matter experts on those specific fields. So look, I like it. I like it a lot. Let me ask you two more questions before we wrap up. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate all of our listeners, as always. Talk about, and I think we talked about it a little bit, but maybe expound just a little bit about quality service and medical consulting no longer defeat big branding. Branding. And I think we just kind of hit on it a little bit in a roundabout way, but can you kind of talk a little bit more about that?
If we look back as recently as maybe 5 years ago, but definitely 10, 15. And when I entered the business 20 years ago, there was a bunch of, I don't care what you call them, but, B, C, and D team brokers, folks maybe that sat in their basement next to their water heater. Sometimes I've heard them referred to as short sleeves and a tie.
Pre-COVID, by the way, when now it's cool to work in your basement, but
That's right.
this is pre-COVID.
That's right. And as somebody who started out next to the board games and everything else, I do understand. But
right.
A business model that is strictly predicated on the notion that we're going to find the weak competition in the market and we're going to eat their lunch is a failing business proposition in today's marketplace. If you cannot go to the place where the businesses are, where the larger agencies, better branded agencies are competing, and you cannot get in, pick a fight with them and consistently win, you will not make it in the next generation of where our industry is going. I'm 100% certain on that. And so how do you defeat bigger branding? It's not through the promise of quality service and the promise of we sure are good at medical consulting. If there's a problem going on with our current agency, those things will get you to the table, but it's probably going to get another agency or two that have those same two fastballs to the table. This is where salt margin comes out. You tip the scale by beating people in the margins of the consulting and the margins of the business. You have to extend that level of diagnostic consulting, that education and tailoring and stewardship and empowerment to other areas and other things. A bigger brand, if you're looking at a seesaw and you're doing the same thing, the brand is going to tip it in the favor of the bigger branded agency. If you can out-consult them in other areas, the seesaw now tips back the other way. So delivering on your promise of comprehensive consulting is a grain of salt in your favor on that scale. Giving your team time back from responsibility creep and allowing them the capacity to work in the areas that they're actually talented at, and not doing things and taking extra time at things that they're not particularly good at, and not differentiating your agency like various world, a pool of what we'll call ancillary benefits. You can tip the scale in these ways, not to mention meet an agency out there that the majority of their revenue is driven through medical, but servicing medical consumes a heck of a lot of that revenue. The nice thing about ancillary benefits revenue, particularly life, disability, and the voluntary benefits that Eric and his team work on, is the amount of ongoing service on those accounts is so low that most of that revenue drops directly to the bottom line. It's not consumed by your team's effort. So if you're trying to drive EBITDA, if you are just trying to have dollars to reinvest into other areas of your business, this is a great area. And through all of these collective efforts, you're going to be able to prove that, yeah, all brokers are not the same. Like you think you're going in and doing something. People have heard these promises before that people are different. And so if I've been in HR or finance for 20 years, I've had every person under the sun come in and say, we're going to do something different on your medical. And so you're exhausted, not understanding why they won't listen to your great idea. The nice thing about life and disability insurance is they've never seen it before from another person. There's no providers involved, so there's no disruption. It's not particularly high dollar to them. And so it's a low stress, low investment on their end to give you a shot. They think you're going to come in and be a commodity, that you're going to prove to them that we are not the same as all brokers and we are actually different. And proving you're different is that grain of salt, again, in your favor. Stack it all together, you now have your margin, you now have your additional profitability, you now have the way you're going to tip the scale in your favor. And so that's where the salt margin name comes from, is the idea by taking this area, doing it a little bit better, is your competitive advantage in the marketplace versus bigger branded agencies, because that's where you need to go win business. You need to go to the metropolitan areas a lot of times. Even if you're in a rural area, you need to compete against the people who have bigger branding. And unless you're the biggest agency in the nation, there's somebody out there with bigger branding, which means you need to have unique things within your consulting toolkit that's going to tip the scale in your favor, regardless of how big you are.
Yeah, I mean, anybody listening, come on, let's all admit our own truths here. How many of us know and remember and realize that the best things are always in the margins, right? I've back in my former life, I call myself a recovering carrier rep. And back in those days, I hired and trained thousands of agents. And I used to tell them all the time when they're taking notes, I can give them a textbook, I can give them a PowerPoint, but the best stuff is not going to be in those pages. It's going to be the notes that they take in the margins, the scribble, the highlights, the circles and the arrows, and all the things that they're referencing. And I used to talk about it all the time. It's the margins that matter.
Yep.
So I was really so excited for you guys when I saw that you branded it accordingly, a salt margin. And also kudos to you guys too. I think it was last year you guys were bought by Baldwin Risk Partners, if I'm correct, or you
Correct.
merged or you acquired. I don't know what the terminology was, but
Partnered. Yep.
I don't there you go. I don't suspect that you envisioned that when you started EB SME in your Amazon-esque basement with near the game boards and so forth, 7, 8, 9 years ago, however long it was. So that's a big deal.
It is, and it was a super opportunity to partner with an organization that is basically acquiring what I'll call freaks of insurance companies that are well outpacing the organic growth of most organizations out there. They've put all the safeguards in place for us to have all of our own operating systems. And so our agencies and partners that we work with external to the organization, their stuff is firewalled off and all the safeguards provided. So we are kind of still our own independent entity, but we are getting some access to some actuarial data and things that we've never been privy to, and the
good.
additional scale to create those asks. So yeah, thank you. It's been exciting, and very excited also to see that every one of our business partners had gone through the process of understanding it and saying, we are excited for you and we're excited to continue forward. So it's been a real positive for us.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen,
Yep.
man, I appreciate your time. As always, it's always good to connect with you. You look, for anybody listening, I appreciate you. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a thought or an idea or suggestion, wherever you are watching or viewing this, please put it in the comment section. If it's a clip on social media, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, Rockstars Rocking, where you're listening to it right now, whether it be Apple or Google or Spotify or any other of the million places that this is airing, please do me a favor personally. If you found value, go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a nice little review. 5 stars would totally rock. And I don't do all the editing and all this fun stuff behind the scenes. It's not something I do. It's not something anybody wants me to do. Trust me, I'm terrible at it. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rockin' podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That, everybody, is Kevin Curran, founding partner of Salt Margin. And if you're not already connected to Kevin on social media, on LinkedIn, make sure you change that. You can find him there, ask him questions there on DM. You can slide right into those DMs. If you want to check out their website, it's saltmargin.com. 2 words, saltmargin.com. And Kevin, any parting words for you?
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. And so our name came about as we were looking to tip the scale or to help people win. And so the idea tip the scale had not quite come out yet. So I was encouraged to go pour myself a glass of wine and start looking through Wikipedia to find things that might influence. And we started with mathematicians and all sorts of things looking backwards, much like we see in our industry today. And around midnight, I'd moved on from wine to whiskey and decided to move from the finite world of Wikipedia to Funkmaster Flex's Hot 97 morning show, with the greatest freestyle that I would say of all time by Black Thought of the Roots. And so at exactly 6 minutes and 39 seconds, Black Thought, in this terrorizing freestyle that he gives out, says, "A grain of salt can tip the scales. It never fails." And that was the moment. So Black Thought, thank you. We'll tag you in this and make sure to comment and reshare. Eric, thank you very much. This was great today. Love what you're doing with the podcast. So happy to hear that your business has been going great. Well deserved, my man. And good luck out there with the remainder of the year.
Are we going to hear you rap?
No, that was it. That was about.
Oh, come on, man. That would have been an industry exclusive right here on the Rockstars Rocking podcast. Listen, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
And we'll see you next week on the Rockstars Rocking podcast. Later.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.